So I think one of the big questions surrounding Black Panther Wakanda Forever is how would they handle the passing of Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa? Now, I was pretty sure that they were going to be honoring, but would the story be able to make sense and then move forward since the central figure was now gone? So let's get into it. The people of Wakanda fight to protect their home from intervening world powers as they mourn the death of King T'Challa. So this review is going to be spoiler free, and while I will give a little bit on the plot, I'm really going to stay away from a lot of the specifics. Now I'm going to be talking spoilers during the podcast with Ruben from the Ruby Tuesday, so if you want to see that, be sure to tune in this weekend. Now, the film opens in a way that really deals with T'Challa's passing and then begins to move into a more of just the plot surrounding Wakanda, and then the encroaching world powers, and this character named Namor. As probably expected, there is a large theme of grief and loss that's examined, and a lot of it I think is handled really well, with some parts being even more emotional than I thought they were going to be. And I love how these themes affect and influence some of the character arcs, which then create some great motivations and actions for those characters. And the examination of loss and grief, it just doesn't come from just one angle, but it's seen through a few different perspectives. And I really enjoyed some of the more mature performances from characters that have been more comedic in the past. So both Shuri and M'Baku they're not doing comedic relief in this. Instead, they're more reserved and emotionally appropriate for the weight of the story. And I really appreciated how Shuri's arc was handled, especially towards the end of the film. The reactions feel earned and then in line with what the story had set up, so it didn't feel cheap or even like it was taking a shortcut to arrive at a resolution with the character. Now, we're also introduced to this character of Riri, and while I like her, we're asked to believe that she can do certain actions that we've seen other characters in the MCU take a bunch of time to learn. So this did feel rushed and improbable given what information we have on her. Now, I knew nothing of Namor. He's one of the characters that are introduced in this. Now, he's this water-based dude with wings on his ankles, and it allows for some really fun action sequences. But I appreciate that his backstory is fleshed out and given a bunch of context, especially for somebody that had zero clue to who he was going into the movie. We also get to see some of his world and his people, but I do wish that there would have been more time just spent in his world to really establish how the society functions and then go more in depth with the visuals. We don't need to spend a ton of time with exposition, but we're shown a bunch from just a distance, and it would have been nice to get closer to everything and then get a better understanding of how it all works. Now, if you've seen the trailer, or really even any images of the movie poster, you know that Namor's people look to be blue. And this is kind of a weird similarity to the Na'vi from Avatar. Now, there are some questions that arose while seeing these people that I don't think are addressed during the story. And, well, my questions, they're not make it or break it. They were little things that just niggled at me when the whole thing was over. As is to be expected, there are some action sequences in this, but not all of them are awesomely showcased. Now, there is one fight scene at a point on a bridge, and I loved that the musical score goes silent, and then all we hear is the grunts of the characters, and then the natural sounds of their weapons clashing and slicing through the air. It added a ton of excitement to the scene, and I thought it made it even more engaging. The fight choreography was also executed really well during this fight, where it was convincing, and then even more than once, the audience, we audibly groaned as an attack happened. It was just showing how invested we were in that scene. Now, there's a battle towards the end of the movie that feels really big, but it's hard to determine what we should be focusing on as it's really just going on. There's so much happening, and the camera is pretty far back, so we just see a huge melee that lacks a lot of tension or real threat for the characters. Now, I think some of the character interactions are outstanding, where emotional heft is brought forward, which then creates some good conflict for the story. But there's one portion that felt unnecessary and almost really shoehorned in. Now, Martin Freeman has a few scenes, and honestly, the one tiny important thing that his character contributes to the story, it really could have been achieved in a number of different ways that would have then removed all of his scenes and saved about 10 to 15 minutes. And I'm not saying he was bad. He was fine in what he did. It's just the story didn't really need him or the characters that he was interacting with to move the narrative forward. And then with the 2 hour and 41-minute runtime, shaving off those extra scenes would make this a little bit more efficient and just a story that focuses on what really matters. Now, most of the special effects are impressive, and I love that we get to see some new character suits. Now, not all of those are awesome looking, but I think the creativity is fun. Now, there's one outfit that makes a character look like Abe Sapien from Hellboy, and then another looks like it came from Big Hero 6. I think these are odd choices, but at least the effects are convincing. And there are also a lot of underwater scenes that are mixed in how realistic they look. Now, some of I feel like the characters were actually filmed in water, and others feel very much like the fake Aquaman visuals that aren't nearly as impressive. I think the pacing is pretty even for this, but that's not to say that the story is constantly driving in a quick manner. And because of the emotional moments that are addressed, the story does slow down some, and then it patiently allows the feelings to be appropriately felt. Now, I think it's balanced well, and it finds that sweet spot of not rushing, but not dragging either. And like almost all Marvel movies, there is a mid credit scene, and this is really, honestly, probably one of the best ones or the best one that they've ever done. The scene is long and it's incredibly impactful, so you do not want to get up and leave before you've seen it. Now, I had fun with the movie, and I really enjoyed how the story addressed the loss of Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, and then watching the characters navigate their grief within that. It was powerful and emotional, but it fit well within the story, allowing for some touching performances. Not everything worked for me, and I do believe that there were opportunities to flesh out areas of the lore a lot better, and then also for the movie to provide more suspenseful action sequences. But in the end, it was enjoyable. So overall, Black Panther Wakanda Forever honors Chadwick Boseman's performance and character while still managing to move the story forward to continue the spirit of what he had begun. The emotional depth of the story is complemented by complex relationship arcs and performances that are engaging and raw. And while not all of the special effects are impressive and the story can be hampered by unnecessary tangents at times, this is a fun superhero story that definitely examines grief, loss, and the celebration of life. There's no sex or nudity, some profanity, and then a bunch of violence. I give Black Panther Wakanda Forever 3.5 out of 5 couches. So what characters are you hoping to see in this? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.